On January 15th, 1983, the life of Scott Hall would be changed forever. Hall, better known as the Bad Guy Razor Ramon, was 25 years old at the time when he was working as a bartender at a gentleman's club in Orlando, Florida. A clubgoer started an argument with Hall over a woman, and things escalated quickly. Violence ensued, and next thing you know, the man was shot dead after a bullet went straight through his skull. The killing occurred at the hands of Scott Hall. Hall was traumatized by this event for the rest of his life and was never the same. Nothing could help Hall overcome the emotional toll the killing took on him. Not getting married and having a family, not achieving fame and fortune thanks to the wrestling business, and not the alcohol and drugs he turned to in an effort to forget about it. The story of Scott Hall is like many in wrestling, one of incredible highs and drastic lows. However, Hall possessed one of the most inspiring redemption stories thanks to Diamond Dallas Page. Hall was said to be living right for several years after Page took him in. That was until the loneliness of the 2020 pandemic sent him down a familiar path of substance abuse until his final days. Sadly, on March 14th, 2022, the wrestling world said goodbye to the Bad Guy far too soon. He passed away at just 63 years of age due to complications from a hip replacement surgery, which resulted in him suffering 3 heart attacks. Peers have blamed the nightclub shooting for the emotional troubles Hall faced throughout his life. That was until a little-known story came to light from an ex-girlfriend that tells a different tale, suggesting Hall struggled with these issues from a young age. This is the moment that changed Scott Hall forever. Hall was born on October 20th, 1958 in St. Mary's County, Maryland, to a military family, as his father, Henry Warren Hall, was a quote, big shot in the Army, according to Hall. His father and grandfather also had histories of alcoholism. Hall would describe his family by saying, "We come from a long line of hard-drinking rednecks." The alcoholism suffered by his father eventually led Scott to become the man of the house by 15 years old. With his father out of the picture, Hall started working jobs and doing anything he could to provide for his family. Eventually, as a young adult, he found himself living in Orlando, where he found work in the nightlife scene. Hall made headlines in Orlando, Florida, as the story of him killing his manager at the strip club he worked at became a local news story. On January 15th, 1983, at 25 years old, Hall, who was a bartender at a strip club called the Original Dollhouse, was working his shift when his boss showed up to confront him. A common misconception about the incident is that Hall got into a scuffle with a patron of the club. It was, in fact, the manager of the club, which has been confirmed by the original story, which can be found in local newspaper archives. Hall had been involved with the manager's wife, a dancer at the club. A short period of time prior to the incident, the manager had been in the news over the killing of another man who was involved with his wife. What a messy situation. Clearly, she don't love you, bro. Talk about karma, instant karma at that, as just a short time later, the manager wound up dead after his own killing of someone. Scott has described the story of what took place that night in prior interviews, and it does check out with what was documented in the local papers. Hall was working when his boss rushed in and angrily confronted him over his wife. Some fighting ensues, and the two wind up in the parking lot outside the club. The man then smashes the window of Hall's car, and next thing you know, the manager is on the floor and he's reaching for his gun. Hall quickly grabs the gun, and as he put it in his own words, shoots the guy in the head. The incident clearly traumatized Hall. He said, "As I closed the distance, I remember what he was wearing, what I was wearing, what it smelled like. You know, a guy pulled a weapon on me, and I took it away and shot him, point blank. A guy's dead, and I'm the reason. This is bad." Those quotes are from ESPN's E60 special on Hall, which is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I suggest giving it a look. Hall never got over the situation and even admitted that he should have gotten counseling immediately following the incident. He says he was just a kid and didn't know any better, so he turned to drugs and alcohol, which were already a big part of his life. What was once used to have fun out in the nightlife of Orlando quickly became a bigger part of Hall's life as drugs and alcohol consumed him like they had his father and grandfather. Hall was arrested for murder, spent 3 days behind bars, and was put on trial. However, the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. The crime may have been dropped, but the emotional toll it took on Scott never subsided. He contemplated suicide, but decided against it due to his background as a Roman Catholic. People who practice that religion believe they go to hell if they commit suicide, so it scared Hall off from doing so. Hall also turned to working out and sought a career as a wrestler after this incident. Quickly, he got started with Championship Wrestling from Florida, where he feuded with their main star, Dusty Rhodes. He then would make his way to the AWA and form a tag team with Curt Hennig, better known as Mr. Perfect. After spending a few years there, WCW came calling, where he portrayed several bad gimmicks, like the Diamond Stud, and he was managed by Diamond Dallas Page. By 1992, Hall's life would change for the better when he signed with the WWF and adopted his bad guy persona, which was influenced by the movie character Tony Montana. It was here where Hall would find tremendous success, even having a 5-star match with Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania 10. The success wouldn't stop there for Hall. Then he joined WCW again in 1996 and became a founding member of the NWO. This is perhaps what Hall is most well known for. Despite the absolute highest peaks of success in his professional wrestling career, Hall could not shake the demons that haunted his personal life. By the time he was in the midst of his late 90s run with WCW, Hall was divorced, absent from his kids' lives, and had been arrested and sent to rehab. Hall was arrested in 1998 for groping a 56-year-old woman while intoxicated outside of a hotel in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That incident occurred sometime right before, during, or after a very distasteful storyline WCW ran on their TV programs. The storyline exposed Hall's problems with drugs and alcohol, and even featured him drunk at a bar. Hall and several of his peers, most notably Kevin Nash, have gone on to blame the incident in 1983 for Scott's trauma and alcohol problems. Rightfully so, Hall suffered severe post-traumatic stress disorder and never fully recovered. The story usually ends here though, when spoken about in interviews or documentaries. I am not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that the traumatic incident did not affect Hall in a negative way. However, an ex-girlfriend of Hall, who nearly became his wife, described a very scary handful of incidents she was put through at the hands of the WWE legend. The ex-girlfriend, named Marcia Field, described a horrific incident of domestic abuse involving her and Hall, which took place in 1979, 4 years prior to the murder at the original Dollhouse. Field described how Hall put his hands on her neck and choked her with all his strength. However, she called out to the Lord and believed that the Lord's angels watched over her, protecting her from dying at the hands of Hall that day. She continued their relationship after this incident, and unfortunately, that wasn't the only act of violence portrayed on Field by Hall. She was left with a permanent scar after Hall broke a brandy glass on her face. An inch closer, and the glass could have hit a vein, resulting in grave damage. Field said Hall was more concerned with his bloodied hand, which needed 18 stitches, than the horrific act he had just committed. The incident was over another woman Hall had been cheating on Field with. She stated that she went to a restaurant the two used to work at together to confront him over the cheating. He was embarrassed by being caught and became enraged. Hall was under the influence of alcohol at the time, and according to Field, he became a demon when he drank. It is interesting after reading this story to see the 1983 incident be blamed for Hall's struggles throughout his life, when he clearly had demons beforehand. Hall had several other violent personal issues after his days in wrestling were over. One of note was when he choked a comedian who told a joke about Owen Hart's death at the Roast of Iron Sheik in 2008 or 2009. The video was on YouTube, and you could tell Hall was incoherently drunk. Another incident, which was the subject of his E60 special, was when he showed up fresh from the hospital and drugged out of his mind to an independent show in the Boston area. The promoter of the show disgracefully pushed Hall out in front of a crowd of less than 500 people. Everything about that is shameful. Lastly, Hall was arrested in 2012 in Florida for choking his girlfriend, Lisa Howell. Howell insisted that their relationship was loving, which then probed his ex-wife Dana to state that their relationship was probably not loving, thanks to Hall's violent past. Dana's statement then led to Marcia Field detailing those horrific incidents she was put through at the hands of Hall. It is fascinating to me that the incident with Field has never been documented, and I guess rightfully so by WWE's part. It would just be awful PR. The question of whether or not WWE is right or wrong for celebrating Hall's life and legacy inside the squared circle is not one to be answered on this channel. What I do know though is that Hall lived a troubled life, and thanks to DDP, he eventually found redemption. He became more involved in his children's lives, lost a ton of weight, and got clean. Honestly, he lived a lot longer than most thought he would, including Scott. And after watching the 2011 special ESPN produced on him, I think that's fair to say. Hall passed away on March 14th, 2022, after complications from a hip surgery led him to suffer 3 heart attacks. X-Pac stated how during the pandemic in 2020, Hall was lonely and resorted back to his old ways of substance abuse. Those substance abuse issues plagued him all the way until his final days. At least he is at peace now, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you on the next one.